Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I have a marker review for you, and we're going to look at a marker. We've reviewed this line before, but they came out with a new design and a larger set, so the company asked me if I would like to review them and compare them well, actually they asked me if I wanted to review them, and I was really interested in reviewing them and comparing them with the older set because I know some of you guys have the older set. So first I'm going to show you this cute little house mouse card I colored with the new markers. Now these are the Ohuhu 100 color set, and there is some differences between these and the old ones, and we're going to get into that in a second, but they blended really well. I was able to use them with a marker spritzer. You have to use them sideways, but it still works just fine because these are an oval barrel, not a round barrel, so they're going to want to turn sideways in the spritzer. But it works just fine, and I found that they blended really well, and I was really happy using them. They were just they felt good in my hand. The caps aren't difficult to remove, which is nice. They're a little easier than the other ones, but I didn't have any caps off of them when I received them in the mail, and I haven't had any fall off, so I think as long as you snap them on good, you're going to be fine. But I like that because if you do have any issues where you have a hard time removing caps, these are going to be easier than the old Ohuhu ones, and like the the old Spectrum Noir, they were kind of hard to, the new ones are a little hard to remove too. So, you know, it's important to know things like that if you do have any issues with your hands. So I made a swatch of the new colors here. I used my new swatch stamps from Waffle Flower. I haven't had a chance to review these yet because after I got them they were sold out immediately, and I was just making sure that they have a good stock before I review them. I believe they're in stock now, so I'm going to link to them, but you can expect a review coming up once I'm sure their stock is stabilized, because it's so frustrating when you want something and then you can't find it. So these are the new colors. You have 100 colors. There's a good assortment of neutrals, so if you like to do skin tones, you do have really pale colors going up into rich deep browns. There's some lovely rosy pinks and other shades of pink that you might need for darker skin tones. For blushing, there's also some corals, and there's a lot of good neutrals that would be good for doing hair as well. That's somewhere a lot of marker sets fall flat, is they don't have enough neutrals to do your skin tones. There's also a pretty decent arrangement of grays. You have warm grays, you have 5 warm grays, and this warm gray 05, that's almost like it almost looks like one of the peachier skin tones actually. You have a warm gray 1, which is like a very light, kind of like a stoneware gray kind of, and then you've got a green gray, you have a couple blue grays, you have 3 blue grays, and then you have 3 cool grays, and then 120. You can layer up your grays to get the tone that you want. What I recommend you do, if you are going to layer up grays and have some warms and cools with different like undertones, that you go over all of it with like your primary tone that you want. So if it's a cool, you go over the entire thing after you've colored it with your cool gray or with your warm gray in a light color, so that you can kind of unify everything. So you can use that technique of painting with your grays, coloring with your grays, and then overlaying some other colors to get a little more variety out of your set. So you're kind of doing a grisaille technique like you would do in oils, but you're doing that with markers because it is a transparent medium, and that works really well. Anytime you're making a big jump in colors, or you don't have exactly the right, like you want to mix a couple greens, but they're not all cool greens, you can overlay everything with your lightest color and kind of harmonize it a little bit. So there's some tricks there if you have you know, limited marker collection. People that do a lot of like marker art, especially like stampers that do a lot of marker art, could have 400 markers, so it's not out of the realm of possibilities to have that at your disposal, but it's not necessary, and you can definitely get by with less. That said, there are some pale colors, but there's not really pastel colors, so that might be something that you'd want to add to your collection. Like your lightest blue are these 2 here, your lightest green would be those 2. You do have a fluorescent yellow that you could probably lighten with a little bit, but you know, you don't have super light blues and greens. Some of the pinks are light, but they're very warm, so you don't have any really like cool pinks. You know, so there might be a few markers that you might want to pick up open stock to supplement this, like your super pale shades. And let's see if there's anything else I want to mention about the colors. I did just a quick little blending swatches, and they blended the same as any other alcohol pens, keeping in mind that with these markers, you have a bullet tip, and that is indicated by the gray band here on the end. Your bullet tip is gray, and then you've got your chisel tip, so there's no brush tip. Brush tips really do help with the blending. So if you don't have that, you're going to either need more colors, or you just need you need to practice. You need more skill. So so keep that in mind. So now let's look at these compared to the older Ohuhu markers. So here is my swatch from the original set, and it's been folded up in my marker bag. The nice thing about these sets is they do come with a case, so it's really easy to grab, go to a friend's house, or go sit on the couch and color while you're watching TV with your family. I like to craft on the go, so something like that is really nice because it's all contained. The colors match the old set pretty well, so that would be wine red number 1. You can see here as I go through, obviously the new set of 100, I'm not going to have all the colors in the set of 80, but I can kind of move them around a bit so you can see that it is pretty accurate. Some colors are a little off, like 15's a little bit different. This is marker paper, by the way, and this is my Nina cardstock, because I don't know why I swatch this on marker paper, because I almost always color on the Nina because I'm doing stamping usually if I'm using alcohol pens. So do your swatch on paper that you typically use. That'd be another tip that I have. But I have to say that most of the colors are spot on. They're really good. Another tip that, or not like a tip, but something I discovered was that the concept markers from Jerry's Artorama that you can buy individually use the same color codes. So you just take off the letter at the beginning. So this is R15. R15 is 15. Okay, like it's that color, more or less. I mean, it might be a smidgen lighter than the new one, but it's going to be close enough if you dried one out and you need to replace it. Jerry's Artorama sells the concept markers. Now, something else I noticed with my concept markers, I was seeing that I had a lot of colors that were higher on the scale, like higher than 120. And then I looked at my old Ohuhu markers, and they have these beautiful colors in like the 130s and 140s that are ultra pale, ultra pastel colors. And even like 109, 107, 173, 163, 164, these super pale shades that are so useful, and I wish they were in this set of 100, because when you don't have a brush tip marker, having those extra super light shades are so helpful for blending your colors. Of course, you can go to any art supply store and get a Copic or a Prismacolor in those paler shades if they stock them, or online if they don't, and fill in your collection, because all these markers are going to work well together. But it'd be nice if there were a few paler shades, like maybe knock out one of the midtones and give us a paler shade, but that's that's a personal preference for me too. I like those really light shades. As a stamper, as someone who works on cardstock usually rather than marker paper, having those lighter, paler shades are important. Oh, another thing about the old style is the old set of 80 had 3 highlighters in it. They were water-based. It was weird. They double-ended markers. They looked like the other ones, but I actually had them in my set of, I just stuck them over in my water-based marker rack, but they were like the exact same markers except of having alcohol ink in it. They had highlighter, like a water-based ink in it, so it was the weirdest thing. So I just took them right out of the kit because they didn't blend with anything. They made the paper pill. They were just oddballs. The fluorescents that are in the new Ohuhu set are alcohol-based, so you can blend them in with your other colors if you want to overlay it on top of, say you made let's say you colored a hibiscus flower or something, and you did your, maybe you used like 14 for your dark, and 22 and 23, and then maybe you blended it out to maybe a paler orangey yellow. Let's see, maybe you blended it out to like 35 or 37, and it just looked kind of dull. You could go over it with that fluorescent orange and pop that color up. So that's kind of nice that they are useful with these markers. I think it was probably an oversight when they manufactured that set that probably the factory popped in the wrong colors, but they are all set for the 120 set. The other thing that's different is that if you look at the old versions, they have a number and a name. So let's not do red, let's do black, because you can read that really well, I hope. So this is 120 black, and this one just says 120. So you're gonna have to you're gonna have to just, you know, deal with the fact that there's no name on here. The other thing I liked about there being a name on the old style is that some of the numbers are hard to tell. Am I looking at a number 6 or a number 9? What color do I have? You know, so having a word on there helped you orient the numbers, so you know you can match it up with your swatch and know what you have. So now you just have to keep your eye out. The indexes on the old style I felt were a little more accurate. So let's see, this is 6, this pink here, whoops. So this is the old style marker, old style swatch. I thought the indexes were really close on there, but if I get the number 6 here, and I know it's the 6 and not the 9 because it's more like fluorescent looking here, the caps are lighter. The caps are lighter on the new ones, so they feel a little pale, and I'm just, you just want to, like, this looks like super pale, number 84, right? It looks really pale, but when I put it to the swatch, I can see the swatch is actually a little more mid-tone, so you definitely want to do your swatch and look at your swatch number and don't just take the caps for granted. Either that or have a scrap piece of paper that you can swatch it before you color it, but that can be wasteful. I mean, not, you know, obviously it's a bigger waste to ruin your card, but, you know, if you have to swatch it out every time, I mean, that's going to be a couple projects worth, you know, by the life of a marker. So I would make your swatch chart. And it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to use waffle flower stamps, it can just be, you know, scribbles. That's going to work just as well. So the style of the marker, we can look at these two here because they're the same color. The body itself is like the same length, I'd say, but the caps might be a smidgen longer on the new style. The old style, the caps come off a little bit harder on the old style versus the new style. And you can see the body, it's pretty much the same. The chisel edge nibs are slightly bigger on the new style. You can see it's just a smidgen wider than the old style. And let's just grab a Copic marker to compare. I'm just gonna set this here so I have the new, the old, so I don't make a mistake here. And I'm just gonna grab any random pink Copic marker here, and that way we can compare. So the Copic markers have a light gray barrel. Their marker caps are pretty easy to remove, and I'm just going to set that here. And you can see that with your Copic, they also have the nib, the brush nib is gray so that you can identify it, and the other nib is the lighter gray of the barrel. So it's kind of similar to the way the Ohuhu markers are done. So the width of the Copic nib is pretty much like the old style Ohuhu. The new style Ohuhu uses a slightly wider nib. So something I wanted to look at, and I'm actually going to cap off the brush ends here. I want to see if the nibs will be interchangeable, because something that I get asked anytime I review a marker is, are they refillable? Well, there's not too many markers that state or market themselves as refillable because creating inks and selling them can be quite problematic and expensive. So what they do is they just sell them, and then you either buy a new marker if you use it up, or you have to rebuy a set, or just find another brand that sells a similar marker. So you can pull the nib out of this new Ohuhu marker and you can see down the barrel, and you could definitely drip in ink. You just need to figure out what color of either Copic or Spectrum Noir ink was compatible. So that is possible. You can pull out the nibs from either the new one, the old one, or the Copic. Now you also see that if you had like a needle tool, like a syringe, you could put your ink in without even taking the tip out, but I think Copic sells a syringe like that you can use, but I don't have that. So now let's look at the nibs side by side. That way we can see if we would be able to replace them with each other. And it looks like the Copic nib is a smidgen shorter than the Ohuhu ones. Especially the new Ohuhu one is quite a bit larger. So I don't think those would be a good replacement. So maybe you know what? I'm gonna go grab a Spectrum Noir marker, and we'll see the size of that tip, and we'll see if that one would be replaceable because they do sell replacements. Okay, I grabbed my Spectrum Noir here. Again, they use the band to identify where the bullet tip is. And let's just pull that out and see. Let's grab my ragman of hot pink fingers by the time I'm done here. Oh, look at that. The Spectrum Noir nib is the same size as the new Ohuhu here. So we could slide that into the Ohuhu marker. and be all set. Yep, it fits. So if you did need to replace your nibs, you could go with the Spectrum Noir for the chisel anyway. We have to check the bullet tip. I've never had to replace a nib, but it's good to know. So I'm going to take this out so I don't get them mixed up and be right back. I also want to take a look at the bullet tip end. So I'm going to pull out the Spectrum Noir bullet tip and then the new Ohuhu bullet tip end, and we'll see if those look like they would be compatible. Hopefully I can get that out. I might not be able to get this end out, but I wanted to check because typically you use the bullet tip ends more than anything else, but I don't know if I'll be able to. Oh shoot, I can't grab this one out. So maybe you won't be able to refill the or replace the bullet tip, but you definitely can get that chisel tip out and refill it with ink. You would just need to figure out what your closest ink would be to like a Copic or a Spectrum Noir, and I would wait until you've run the marker dry. You can actually also put in a few drops of denatured alcohol in those in your pens if they're starting to get dry or worn out, or maybe you left the cap off and it dried out. You can revive it that way. Something else I want to show you here. I'm just gonna have to go clean up my stuff with rubbing alcohol when I'm done, because I've just made a mess with my fingers and removing nibs and stuff. Something else that I want to show you. This came in the package, and what they have, they give you a coupon code for your next order, and they also have a frequently asked questions. So if you got a dried out pen upon arrival, a free replacement's on its way. You just gotta let them know if the pen dried out after a couple uses. Let them know, they'll send you a free one. If a pen is bleeding, that doesn't affect it. I had one that had like a drop of like dried ink in the end, so it was like kind of on the edge of my pen, and I took rubbing alcohol on a rag and I just wiped it off and it was fine. And if you got a duplicate color and you were missing one, they'll send you the one you're missing. So I think that's really important to mention, because I know people have got sets and they've gotten duplicate colors and they just thought that was what it was and they never reached out. And it's like, guys, most companies will do the right thing. If you have a mistake, let them know. They want to make sure that you're satisfied. So I love that they put that in there, because some people are really shy to speak up if something's not right with their stuff. And I mean, I'm always encouraging people, it's like, email them, what's the worst that's going to happen? But they even put it right in there, like, let us know if it's not right, which I think is really nice. And I think I'm sure there are other marker sets on Amazon that are very similar, but I do like dealing with this company because they are their products seem to be good quality, and they seem to have good customer service as well. I think I showed you this. I might not have, though, because this is the second time I'm recording this, because I did the nib thing on the first time I recorded it, and I made such a mess. I mixed the nibs up and I couldn't figure out what went where, and I'm like, I gotta start this over. So the set comes with an index. So this was another thing I've heard on some of the past sets. Here, I'll just put the old one here. I've heard on some of the past sets that you would get duplicate colors, or you might order a couple, like 80 color sets, and end up with different colors in each set. But this, the 100 color set, has a set number of colors, and they include the index in the bag, so you can go through there and you can look at your colors, make sure you have everything you're expecting, which is really handy. And the indexes on this color sheet, it's not as good as making your own. Like the warm gray 05 doesn't look like what my warm gray 05 does on my swatch, but it's a lot better than the indexes on the caps. So, you know, even if you don't have time to swatch it out and you want to start coloring right away, use this chart that comes in the bag, and then keep it in your bag so that you'll have it. Please pardon the sound of my furnace. At least it's a new furnace, so it's not as noisy, so that's good. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to convey about these markers. I think quality-wise, they are as good as the old ones. I like the feel of the marker in my hand. It's, you know, it's non-roll. These were oval barrels too, it's just the caps were kind of squared off. I would say they're identical in quality. The colors are nice, they're pretty close. If they're the same number, they're going to be the same color. They may just be a touch off, but not enough to really notice unless you're putting them side by side. But great markers, and I love the little carrying case with a handle so you can grab it and go if you're like me and you like to, you know, color on the porch or at a friend's house, and it's just really convenient. And if you use a marker up, You do have the option of buying a Jerry's Artarama concept marker to replace it, or like I said, pull that nib out, pull the chisel tip nib out, find an ink that matches, or put a few drops of denatured alcohol in there using like an eyedropper or a pipette, and that will reconstitute the ink in there. You might have a lighter shade, but if you left the cap off and it dried out, it'll bring it back to life. But you can obviously order ink refills like by Copic or Spectrum Noir, or even use like your alcohol inks to replenish them. I wouldn't spray apply them if you use alcohol inks though, so if you're going to use one of these, make sure you get like a Copic ink to refill it. But that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and until next time, happy crafting!